Thanks so much for joining us. I'm here with Alexis Lyons today, and she is a spouse of an active duty airman. So she's an Air Force spouse, but she's doing a joint assignment right now. So she is co-located on an Army installation. So that's kind of exciting. We've been chatting about joint assignments and art. So I'm really excited to share her story. Hi, Alexis. How are you?
I'm great, Sue. Thanks for having me today. It's nice to chat.
No, it's been a great time chatting. And I have had the opportunity to get to know you better. And I would love it if I know this is terrible, but could you repeat your stories for us and just tell everybody a little bit about your very non-traditional military spouse journey?
Absolutely. So I'm a military spouse of 8 years. We're an Air Force family, and I met my husband in college originally, and I was pursuing. Here's part of the original story of Alexis's career experience. I was pursuing my nursing degree, and he was trying to be a pilot, and decided at the time it was with the both of those careers that just didn't have time to spend together and parted ways. And I went on to go into nursing. I was an ICU nurse for many, many years. And he became a pilot. And then we connected later. And so that's kind of where my military spouse journey came together as I then continued working in nursing and then transitioned over into working in tech and got some tech certifications related to my first master's degree, which was related to nursing informatics. And then a couple years ago, kind of a things transition, realized that the job I was in still wasn't quite meeting what I needed to for myself and for our family and with military life. And thankfully had some good friends and mentors and people encouraging me through this art that I had been doing on the side to do this full time and do it for myself. So that's kind of how I ended up doing this as a professional artist. So that's where I am now doing art.
And it's so cool because, like, when you say that you're doing this as a professional artist, like, she means it. Like, you have a business and you've monetized your art. And I think that's the hard transition for people to make is, like, if you want to pursue art, sometimes it's just, I'm going to pursue art because it's my passion. You're pursuing art because it's your passion and it's what you're good at. And so you've found a way to monetize it. And so I think my next logical question for you would be, like, what steps did you take to do that? Because for people out there who might be looking to kind of dip their toe into actually pursuing their passion, like, how do they even get started?
Well, getting started is this place to start because you have to make, a forward movement to start any of these things. Little bits and pieces are all important. I used the framework from some other individuals I've seen, and that was creating a plan. And before I left my job officially, I kind of mapped out exactly, here's the coach I'm going to get because I was familiar with her from some of my other friends. Here's, I'm going to look at what steps do I need to take for things I'm going to apply for? What work am I going to create? And so I laid all those initial pieces out for myself as kind of and wow, we love our checklist, don't we? I have made,
Of our checklist.
it works. It makes me happy. So I made my checklist of this is the stuff I'm going to work through and obviously make adjustments where needed. But I laid all of that out for myself and gave myself ample time because I knew I was doing something new for me. And even if other people have done it, you're still going to be in that learning process to figure out kind of what's working and not working as you build this plan. And then you gain confidence through saying, hey, I was picked up for this opportunity. I was able to start selling my pieces here. Now, what do I want to do next? And continuing to add those components into what you want that future to look like. And applying for this was one of the things that came up on my future plan. So, it's adding those things over time and treating it with a lot of structure because those of us who are creative and work in the creative field, many of us are well known for being in our own little world and flow state painting for many, many hours. And so creating this form for you to kind of come back to makes it actionable for you over time to say, here's what I want to do. And it makes you think deeply about it and say, how do I want my future to look? And how am I going to get there? Because without those steps, and especially with some of the ups and downs and kind of chaos of military life and timelines or deployments or just the asks sometimes that come up, that can get derailed very quickly. And so having that to come back to is very centering and allows you to kind of over the course of the year or however much time you've set apart, say, yes, I've continued to make progress on these things. And you look back and say, I have now done these things because of setting it up that way.
No, and that makes total sense because I think no matter what you do in your business, you still own a business. Like you're still an entrepreneur. And so that's such a great point because you're a creative, but you're still a business owner. And so there is that need to put the systems in place to run your business. So, with that in mind, are there any tips that you would give to other military spouses who hope to make a living with their art?
I knew from the get go that when I was going to start a business, it's professionalize it. And I know we're talking about me doing professionalizing as art, but it can be any form of type of art. Doesn't matter if you're painting or if you are a ceramicist or any flavor of that, that it needs to be professional from the beginning. And that I mean that saying that it's how you create your public persona. It's how you interact with people when you email them back and forth and you're applying for opportunities. It's, you know, what you're working on in the background to make sure you're continuing to grow your business. And as you were saying, it's just it has to maintain that structure for what you're trying to do long term. And that is really, really important because otherwise you're not kind of giving it the um like time and
Yeah,
structure that it
attention.
needs to
Yeah.
to be, you know, something that you can do long term and something that people also take seriously. I mean, I know it's important to us. We're the ones who created it, but it creates that aspect where people can look at it from the outside and say, "Oh yes, I see that this is professional. I see how well it's done, how nicely it is." And people know that initially. It's a very quick gut reaction, right? You know when you look at something whether it feels like it was well done with with intention or not, and whether it feels very kind of slapped together. And especially coming from our community, putting your best foot forward is really important. And so from the very beginning, it needs to look good. It needs to look nice. And then on top of that, as we were kind of discussing, it's also creating your plan. And for me, I will sit on my soapbox for quarterly and yearly planning. And it doesn't seem like it's really important until, like we said, life starts happening and you can start feeling underwater very, very quickly. And that is not, I don't enjoy that feeling. I don't think a lot of other people do either. And so coming back to that and, you know, sitting down and saying, what do I want to accomplish for this quarter? And that makes it smaller. It makes it easier to kind of work through instead of thinking of like, for many of us, thinking that a whole year can get very overwhelming very quickly. And then you don't end up accomplishing anything with that because you can't come up with goals and you can't come up with where you want to go. And so sitting down with that makes you state outright, here's the things I'm wanting to do, here's the things I'm wanting to pursue. And in tandem with that, it needs to also include the things you're doing with your life. What are the things within my business and outside? Because you're a whole person.
Right.
I need to I need to work out 3 times a week. I want to read a book a week. Those kinds of things. Or I'm going to go on a date night with my spouse, or I'm going to take my kids to the library, or something like that. These things all need to be included in the same vein of I'm going to create 10 paintings this quarter. I'm going to apply for at least 2 new opportunities. I'm going to go, for me as an artist, I'm going to go to one new art event, or, depending on where you're living, there's a multitude of museums or, just different things to get plugged into. That's part of me growing this as a whole. And so, however that looks for me, what you need to plug into, what that looks for you, that is ultimately, especially when life gets busy. I know because we just PCS, as she's saying, we're in a joint um, assignment right now, is that I had sat down and had all my quarterly planning. And so once everything got resettled, I knew exactly where I was going to next and wasn't kind of looking around saying, well, now what do I want to work on and now what I want to do. I can immediately step into that and say, okay, this was the next painting I was going to work on. This was the next opportunities I was looking to apply for. Here's what I need to prepare for me right now in advance of starting graduate school with SCAD. And it helps ground you when a lot of other things with military life can be chaotic.
Well, that makes total sense because we're huge proponents of that because like every NMSN member knows that we talk about annual planning so you can know what you want to look at the end of the year, like what will you look back at and go, this was a successful year. And then we figured out that the real trick to PCS proofing your business is by then chopping it down to quarters. Because if you have like, if you want to do 10 pieces of artwork per month, or did you say month or year? Month, right?
Quarter. Yeah.
Quarter.
So it would be about 3 months, right?
So if you want to do 10 pieces a quarter and you know that in Q1 you're going to PCS, then maybe you're a little bit more flexible with yourself and go, okay, I'm going to do 7 in Q1. That means I have to do 13 in Q2 or distribute those other three. And maybe I'm doing 11 in Q2, 11 in Q3, 11 in Q4. And then that makes it so much more manageable instead of going, I failed. I didn't do my 10. I'm just going to fold and give up. And I totally applaud you because that is exactly right. That is the exact right mentality, right? And the same goes for financial planning. If they decide that, hey, I want to make this amount of money with my artwork in a year, but I'm going to PCS in Q2, then don't put so much pressure on yourself in Q2. Redistribute what you have to make in the other 3 quarters. And that's how you PCS proof your business. But, like you don't learn those things intuitively. And it's almost like you have to be around other people who are doing it to talk about that. And so I guess that's my next question is, how does that networking look like for artists, right? Like, how do they find those networks? And are there networks outside the military community that military spouse artists should be plugging into to get that kind of support? And so, like, all the things that may not come to them naturally, they can learn from others.
Absolutely. And we need to do both. You have, I mean, and that's what I've experienced is doing both. And that has been things like joining, different organizations that I've joined the Kansas City Artist Coalition. That's one of the ones, it's a local artist community here. I also, and this is going to be a weird one that most people may not realize, go to the library because the library is a community hub and they have so many resources, so many connections, and can kind of help point you to some other individuals that way. The other ones, we're obviously a little biased at times of already doing things with our military community, and that's going to conferences or that's doing things, if there's events on base or, things of that nature. But there's different kinds of opportunities through both types of organization. And those things can also then cross over because then by being a military spouse or service member, you're then sharing our community with those individuals who, the exhibition I had this past year was about my moving box art, and it was my PCS boxes that I cut apart and I had painted on and turned them into art. And this exhibition allowed me to have the opportunity to share my story of being a military spouse in a community that has a lot of military service members, and a lot of people don't know or realize they're there with their families and that they live there full time, and so that was something to kind of help highlight those families and the spouses and saying, hey, we're here. And that wouldn't exist if you didn't apply for those kinds of opportunities or look for those kinds of things. And so yes, those things help not only you share about our life, it helps you share your work, and then it also helps you provide this kind of stepping stone for you to learn more from other people to continue adding their knowledge and your knowledge together to keep the conversation moving forward. And that also gives you a wide variety of things to look out for, to apply for, and that's really important when you're trying to build your career over time. It gives you different things to wrap your brain around and challenge yourself to and say, well, they're looking for this type of thing. Maybe I'll challenge myself to create something. You were mentioning one of the other people who was creating miniature paintings, that was something she challenged herself to do, that this is something that, you can look at different opportunities that way as well. And those help you provide more people that then you can show your work to and say, hey, I saw my work. You should come check it out. And it continues to build people who are interested in collecting your work over time, or purchasing from you as someone who enjoys what you're creating in your story. And so there's kind of that intermix of both of those things, but it's very important to do both. And then obviously it's just still pick and choose which of that makes sense for you as an individual, because there are a lot of opportunities out there sometimes, and you do still need to maybe narrow that down. Because you get really
yes to something, you're saying no to something else, right? So I love that you said yes to furthering your education. Like you decided that you were going to go back. You already had a master's, but you're going back to SCAD to get your master's in fine art. Can you tell us a little bit about the value or the importance of continuing education for artists? Because I think from the outside looking in, it would seem like it wouldn't be that important because you're like, okay, if you're an artist, all you need to do is paint or or sculpt or whatever. But in talking to you, it's very important. But I wondered if you could maybe share with everybody why it's important.
Absolutely. So for me, I have been a self-taught artist up until this point and have spent, as you said, many, many hours painting because that's what I do as my form of art. And over time, I've realized that there is that element of learning from hands-on experience, and you do have to do that. But at a certain point, I realized that even with all the books and videos and everything I was learning, there was still going to be a gap with people who have the expertise that I could learn from to do this full time. And because we have the opportunity with the military and with what they offer with the GI Bill, I'm being able to go back to school. And SCAD is a school that is they take the GI Bill. Not only that, they are a Yale Learning School and have worked with me to be able to get that set up. And beyond just that, they have a fully online program. And so as a military spouse who's still with an active duty service member, not having that requirement has opened up a whole world for me of saying I can pursue this degree for myself that is, as he and I discussed, this is something that continues to build our future together in and outside of the military. And so it's important for me for not only the technical expertise, because fundamentally you still need to be able to create something, but it also provides a different, as we've been discussing, a different kind of mentorship, different kind of network to get plugged into that opens other doors and opportunities that wouldn't exist outside of doing that. And it's a lot of work. I mean, let's not sugarcoat that part. As someone, as you said, who has done graduate school, and that was one of my questions when I did my application. Like, how do you feel you can handle the academic rigor? And I was like, oh boy, I've already gotten a master's. I think I'll be okay on that part.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, different kind of work, but still, yes, it will still be challenging. So I don't discount the fact that if you're going to pursue it, it does still need to fit into your life and how you're trying to do that. And then I would also kind of say that, as we all know, there's never a good time to sign up for any of that stuff. So just get started. And so that was for me. There was a couple layers of professional education for me that I felt that this is what I'm planning on doing as my full-time career, that I wanted to add this aspect of it that does, from my perspective, add a level of professionalization. And it's not to say that you can't do it without it. There are obviously many self-taught artists that are doing incredibly well and are also just creating amazing work in general. But for me, with the path I was trying to build, this was something that I felt was integral to me being able to do this long term.
It also opens up other opportunities for you because we were talking about how for students and also for alumni, they make studio space available, and they probably have, exclusive opportunities for alum. And so I think that, like you were saying, it just opens up an entire network, and with an entire network opening up comes other opportunities, like tangible opportunities, as opposed to, like we like to say networking is intangible. I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think it's very tangible in terms of the benefits it brings to you.
Well, and absolutely. I mean, if you go to SCAD's main website, they're on their main website, there is a tab at the very top and it says hire an alumni for SCAD alumni. And so there's this entire section that people can come, that they've highlighted this out front. It's not just a conversation that's happening in person, or they're making it easily accessible for you to say, I'm looking for someone from this organization, and how do I find people from that? So it's very important.
So continuing education for artists has great value, like
Yes.
just like everybody else. No, thank you so much for chatting, Alexis. This has been so fun. And I know we're going to continue the conversation after we say goodbye to you guys, but I wanted to thank USAA for making these conversations possible. And I hope you guys will come back next week to listen to another fantastic military spouse. But Alexis, thank you so much. I'll give you the last word. Anything else you'd like to say to everybody?
Thank you for listening. And I hope that something I've shared today resonates with you or is helpful for you. I know I've listened to many other people and they have had incredible impact on me being able to feel encouraged and supported, and that I can do this thing. And so I hope that that's something that they take away.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.